Hello and welcome back to another episode of our occasionally fruitless, occasionally successful trying to track down the wheeler dealer cars. In this episode we are going to be looking for the 1989 TVR S2 and the 1995 Land Rover Discovery TDI. So first up we've got the TVR Series 2. Now this program first went out on the 3rd of November 2009. Now, Mike purchased this car from eBay and he paid what seems a cheap price, $2,550 for it. Now, it needed a few jobs doing. It needed a replacement servo and master cylinder because the brakes weren't particularly good. They needed to record a radiator, helped improve the cooling. There was a few issues with the electrics, nothing major, but they sort of went through it front to back and made sure everything was working. And the other thing is the passenger seat needed some repair. Particularly there were some bolts broken at the bottom, which Ed welded back on and put it all back together. So it was up and ready for sale. So how did they get on with this one? Well, the purchase price, as I already mentioned, $2,550. The repairs were quite cheap. It was only £490. So that brings us to a total of £3,040. And Mike managed to sell this car for $4,250. So that gave him, on a fairly small investment, a healthy return of £1,210. Now, if we fast forward to 2024, excuse me, recovering from a cold, we can have a look at our benchmark guide, which is the Practical Classics magazine valuation guide for a Condition 1 car. And in 2024 they reckon that car should be worth $5,750. So it has gone up, but not by a great amount. It's only gone up by £1,500, which not massive compared to some of the cars we've seen recently. So what happened to G918 KDA after the show? Well, let's start off with our partner, My Car Check, to see what they can tell us. Well, if we have a look at the front page, we can see it's not been scrapped, it's not been exported, which is good, but it's also got no MOT, so it does suggest it's off the road at the moment. The other interesting thing we can look at is the change of ownership, because the last change of ownership was the 10th of September 2009. Now, with the show going out in November 2009, that suggests whoever purchased it from the show, and as we know, who actually is seen buying it on screen is often open to interpretation, shall we say. But there's definitely a change of ownership around the time that car would have been sold by wheeler dealers. So it suggests whoever got it then has still got it now. Because the other interesting thing, if we look back to the previous change of ownership, which was in March 2009, that gives that reasonable few month window for when wheeler dealers probably had the car and did some work on it. So let's sort of go to the MOT history check, because that's always good, I think, for a heartbeat of what a car has been up to. If we go back slightly a step, there was an MOT on it in September 2008, which expired on the 24th of September 2009. Now, the reason I mention that is that actually expired just 2 weeks after the last change of ownership. So whoever took it on, it only had a couple of weeks MOT on it. And interestingly, they didn't put it in for MOT for another couple of months. It actually went in for MOT in December 2009, which it passed. It then had another pass in 2010 after a very minor fail, nothing sort of particularly spectacular. And again, a pass in 2011. It then goes all a little bit quiet. The next time it reappears is here in June 2014, where it's had a pass, and at that point it's done 114,309 miles, which since the show is only about sort of 10,000 miles. But interestingly, it has another MOT in June 2015, and yep, you can guess where I'm going. The mileage is identical. It's done absolutely nothing. So may have been sat with a trader, who knows. But then again, it goes quiet after that until July 2019. It did pass then, and that MOT expired in January 21. The reason for that is everyone got an extra 6 months on their MOT due to the COVID situation. But after that, nothing. if I do a cross check onto DVLA, I could just make sure that it's not been exported, which it's not showing that it is. So that double checks everything we found out with my car check. And I'm stuffed on this one. I've been everywhere through forums, you know, all my old favourites like, you know, piston heads and so on. There's just nothing out there. Even like the IMC database, that one couldn't help me either. There's just nothing out there on it at all. One of the reasons it will be low profile is if it's not had a change of ownership, it wouldn't have been advertised or auctioned or anything like that. So yeah, I'm a bit stuffed on that one. I'm 100% confident it's still about. It's out there. It's just not being used. Only being used sort of very intermittently. Now, one thing I do want to cover with you. Would you believe of those people watching, 75% aren't subscribers? So please do the right thing. Just give the old little button in the corner a click. Now, our second car, 1995 Land Rover Discovery TDI. A very popular car back in its day. This program went out on the 10th of November 2009. And Mike, in today's values, you'd be amazed, paid just £1,500 for this Discovery. Yeah, they were really at their bottom value around this time 15 years ago. Now, they took this vehicle on, and really they were going down, making it a bit of a sort of expedition sort of type vehicle. They put on like the big roof rack, the rear ladder, snorkel on the engine intake. They put under protection bash plates, light guards front and rear, big spotlights and a light bar on the front. The only mechanical work they actually had to do for this one was replace the steering box because that was a bit worn. So how did the numbers get on? Well, the purchase price was $1,500. The parts price was quite hefty compared to that. It was $1,231, which gave them a total spend out of $2,731. And once Mike had sold it for just £3,000, allegedly to someone who got a sort of off-roading expedition type of company, that left him with a profit of just £269. Now, if we fast forward to 2024, back to Practical Classics magazine, even valuation guide, they suggest that vehicle is now worth £5,000. And before you start waving your keyboards at me saying, well, actually, because that one's got all those parts on it, it should be worth more, I'm sure you can make your own adjustment. I don't know. What's it worth? Another £1,000? But, you know, even on that basic £5,000, that's a £2,000 uplift from what Mike sold that car for, or truck really, back in 2009. So what happened to M609 NWK after the show? Well, as you know, one of my favourite places to look to start with to check on the heartbeat of a car is the MOT history. And if we have a look, first one that applies really is August 2009, and this I imagine is around about the time that Wheeler Dealers had the vehicle, and it passed with a couple of minor advisories. At this point it's done about 154,000 miles. Following September, it had reasonable failure here. The main points are there's sort of 3 significant areas of corrosion near body mounting points on the chassis and so on. So that all got repaired and it was represented and passed a few days later. September 11, it failed on a mighty problem of registration number light was out. So not surprisingly, that was repaired the same day and passed. September 12, body corrosion has crept back again, 2 areas this time. Must have been a bit more of a job to fix because it was sort of 3 weeks later before it was represented for the MOT, which it passed. Then we got September 13, failed just on the handbrake, so nothing too much wrong there, and it passed a couple of days later. Interestingly, at this point it's only done 162,000 miles. So since the show, it had only done about 8,000 miles, which for a truck like that is really not a lot. I was quite surprised. As years gone on, it seemed to do less and less miles each year. So it wasn't particularly getting sort of out and about there too much. But after September 13, it all goes quiet. That MOT obviously expired September 14, and it's not been presented for an MOT since then. If we check on my car check, front page tells us what we already know, that the MOT's expired, but also it's not scrapped, it's not been exported or anything like that. And if we look at DVLA, it's showing as sawn, and it's not been exported, cross-checking what we saw on my car check. Again, I've pushed around the corners of the internet for this one. My guess, it could just be used off-road, because it's got that very much that off-road kind of style to it, and with the roof and roof rack and so on. Maybe someone's plundered the parts off it and it's just sat somewhere quietly rotting away, just the paperwork for it hasn't been done. As ever with all of these cars, if you know anything, guys out there, please do get in touch. Either drop us a comment, or you can get in touch with the Facebook page, whichever. It'd be great to hear on it. Well, I hope you really enjoyed those two. Unfortunately, not one of our more successful searches even. And yeah, just like I say, for me, it's the journey. We like to see what's happened to these cars, and sometimes we get an end result, sometimes we don't. It's the way the cookie crumbles. In the meantime, have a quick look at this video, because we think you're going to enjoy it.